treadmill or you're on the bicycle. And I was at the bicycle, I was at the gym, and I was looking for something to read. Now, for those of you who are my age, not for those of you who are 25 and less, there used to be this book called The Real Estate Book, and you used to be able to find houses in the real estate book because there was no internet then, and you used to go through the book to find houses. So I'm on the treadmill, and I'm reading this book. It's the real estate book, and I see a house in Trenton, and I'm sorry, not in Trenton, in Easton, Pennsylvania, and this house is going for $26,500, and it's a two-family house. So I have no idea what I'm doing, but I figured I'll call the real estate agent. I call the real estate agent. I go see it. She shows me this house. She shows me 3 other houses, and she goes, "What do you think?" I go, I guess I'll take it. She goes, "Okay, great." She goes, "I'm going to need a $500 deposit." You know, she was talking about earnest money deposit. "I need a $500 deposit and let's do some paperwork." So I looked at her and I go, "I don't have $500. And she goes, "Well, do you have $100? Now, honestly, I was just too embarrassed to tell her that I didn't have $100 either. But I wrote her a check, and I figured out a way to make the check clear. Now, I had another problem. I got a mortgage coming, and I had to figure out how to get around $3,600 to close on this property. So at the time, I needed like $3,600. I'm buying the property. It's a two-family house. I still have no idea what I'm doing. Long story short, about a month later, I close. You guys ever read the book by Robert Allen, No Money Down? Well, I decided to buy this book, and I decided to read this book, and I actually end up reading this book and reading about how I did it. Now, I ended up actually putting the $3,600 on credit cards and buying the property, which was kind of cool. I then made the biggest mistake that I've ever made. Actually, I shouldn't say the biggest mistake I ever made. I've made the first mistake I ever made in real estate. I sold that property for a 50% profit in 1 year. So most of you guys are going, "Wow, that's pretty good, man. You sold that property for a 50% profit in 1 year. That's great." Well, when I realized later on, as I started buying properties, that the greatest way to buy properties or to invest in real estate is with a good buy and hold rental strategy. So years went on, and I started buying properties, and I started having tenants, and I started doing all the right things, and I started going on with a buy and hold rental strategy. And the buy and hold rental strategy is pretty simple. The rent pays the mortgage, the property values increase, and the rents increase. This happens to be a long-term, little risk way to invest in real estate. And in fact, what we teach now here at Investor School is we teach this is the best way to build wealth. So you do this. Now, I decided, anybody remember 2008?
Yep.
Yeah. So 2008, I decided to change my strategy. Actually, I decided to change my strategy right around 2006, 2007. And if you remember, property values were going up. Like somebody would buy a property for $100,000, and 3 weeks later they would say, "Wow, I bought the property for $100,000, and now it's worth $150." Now they were full of shit, but you start to listen to that, and you start going, "Wow, maybe I'm doing something wrong." So I decided to change my strategy to the stupid and greedy strategy. Now, the stupid and greedy strategy is very simple. You buy overpriced houses. You don't get enough cash flow to pay the mortgage. You speculate that prices will always go up. And I will guarantee you that this is a short-term and high-risk guaranteed failure way to invest in real estate. So what happens in 2008? Everybody remember what happened in 2008? Well, I've got all these properties that I can't afford anymore, and the property values are going down. In fact, at one point, my property were worth $3.9 million, and I owed $3 million. Pretty good, right? But it felt like in about a week, that $3.9 million was only worth about 2.5. By the time I filed for bankruptcy, those properties were worth $1.2 million, and the trustee of the bankruptcy got $750,000 for them. So now I'm broke. I have no credit. It's 2009. Hey, Scott, did we lose anybody yet when they found out that the guy you have on here just went bankrupt in 2008, lost everything?
No, not that I see.
All right, I just want to make sure.
I'll look on Facebook.
What kind?
No, we're getting more people on there. This is starting to watch parties, so we want to watch.
Well, what kind of guest would you have that tells you that he went broke? I mean, really? That's the kind of guest you bring? Oh, wait a minute, that's me. Never mind.
The realistic,
truthful
yeah.
ones.
The people who have that have real life.
I know. I'm
The
teasing.
gurus.
All right. So what now? Right?
Which happens.
Yeah, exactly. So what now? So I literally, and I'm going to tell you right now, at this point, it's 2009. I literally have a 420 credit score. 420 credit score. So anybody who ever says that they can't buy houses with a low credit score, just know that that's what I started doing. I'm going to teach you about that in a minute. I had a 420 credit score, and I literally didn't have two nickels to rub together. I would take my kids out. You know, I was divorced. I would take my kids out on a Wednesday night, and there were times when I took my kids out for dinner on a Wednesday night that I had to go to my change jar and take change out of there just to buy them McDonald's. That's where I was at 2009. Kind of cool, right? All right. So what now? Look, I'm an entrepreneur. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So you got to figure it out. You got to figure out what to do next. Now, I have a passion for real estate. So let's talk about what I did and how I learned Subject 2. I'm going to talk a little bit about this as a great way to buy real estate. I'm going to talk about that and how I did it and how I recovered. So let's first say, I want to talk about a good deal. So you guys are on, everybody out there, real estate, is everybody here a real estate investor? I can't tell because nobody's got faces on. Nobody's got cameras on. Adam, you're not a real estate investor? You're saying no?
Oh, man.
All right.
He's
Well,
not, I am.
There you go. Oh,
I'm looking. I can't see their faces, so.
somebody got to put their thumbs up. Put a thumbs up if you're a real estate investor. All right. Well, you're one real estate investor. That's pretty good. Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Is this real estate group?
Yep.
All right. There we go. We got a couple other thumbs up. Okay, cool. All right. You guys put your thumbs up. I want you to actually put your thumbs down because I want you to put your thumbs up in a minute because we're going to play a little game. Anybody want to play a game?
Oh, you got thumbs up
Yeah.
online on Facebook.
Yeah, here's the game. The game is, would you buy this house? So I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to tell you about a house, and then you tell me if you'd buy the house, because let's talk about what a good deal is before we talk about Subject 2, so we could talk about, about what, I want you guys to learn. So let's put it that way. All right, so let's talk about this one. This is the first one. The first one is, this is a house. So you can see there's a house in the background. It's a two-family house. And that yellow building happens to be a pizzeria. It's a takeout pizzeria. And it's a commercial property, two-family house, takeout pizzeria. The asking price is $179. By the way, in this exercise, what I write as the asking price is the only price you can pay for it. You can't negotiate it. It is the only price you can pay for it, so you have to buy it for that price. The value of this property is about $225. It rents, at the time, it rents for $550, $850, and $750. It's fully occupied. The tenants pay everything. Now, who would buy this house? Raise your hand if you buy this house. Put a thumbs up if you buy this house. All right. You guys would buy this house, right? All right, cool. So is there anybody out there who thought they wouldn't buy this house? I don't know if you can put in the chat if you wouldn't buy this house. All right, that's great. Now, I want to talk about something here that you guys might or might not have seen. So first of all, you clearly see that the value is $225 and they're asking $180. That makes it definitely a buy. But here's the other thing about this. If you look at this, the rents actually add up to $21.50 and the asking price is $179. So I'm going to teach you something right now, and you guys want to write this down. It's something called the 1% rule. So basically, if the monthly rent is 1% higher than the purchase price, it's probably a great cash flowing property. So if you remember, the number was $21.50. The house was going for $179,000. This clearly makes the 1% rule. It's a great deal, clearly, right? But let's talk about this now. Here's the problem. Remember, it's 2009. Okay? I have no money. I have no credit. In fact, it's a commercial property, so I have to put $54,000 down on this property. It's going to cost me about $10,000 in fees. And with a 420 credit score, am I going to qualify? I'm going to say probably not. Right? All right. I wasn't sure if Reese was smiling at that, but then I realized it was a picture. All right. Here's another one. I'm going to ask you guys, and you guys put in the chat box what you would do with this. So the asking price is 200,000. The approximate value is 185. It rents for 1395, and it's not occupied. So who in the chat box, put somebody in the chat box if you would buy this house. Say I would, or say I wouldn't, or would or wouldn't. Just I'm curious to see if you guys would buy. Yeah, right. Adam's got his thumbs down. That's cool. Anybody else wouldn't? No, I would not. Right? Of course not. Right? Anybody else? Cool. You guys are learning. I love it. Anybody else want to say no, 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 no? Okay, great. Anybody say yes?
No, one no.
All right. Yeah, got lots of those actually. No buy, of course. Right? All right. Cool. Excellent. Next one. Oh, by the way, could you buy this house? Right. So let's think about this. Number one, it's not on owner-occupied financing. So at a $200,000 asking price, the down payment is $40,000. I'd also have to put $15,000 in under appraisal costs, and it also cost me about $6,000 in fees for loan. And with a 420 credit score, am I going to qualify? I'm going to say probably not. Okay, let's go to the next one. Would you buy this house? The asking price is $110. It's worth $110. It rents for about $1,200. It's fully occupied. The tenants pay all utilities. Who would buy this house? Put yes. If you wouldn't buy this house, put no. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Yes. Okay. Anybody else? We got one yes. Yep. All right.
No, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't, of course, right? So some people would. So this is kind of a borderline, right? It's worth what they're asking. And, you know, the rent's $1,200, you know, according to the 1% rule, it's close. I mean, it's still a little bit higher than 1%. So if you said yes or you said no, it's fine, right? Something to think about. So you got some people that said yes, some people said no, right? Let's go to this one. By the way, and again, let's go this. If you were to buy this house, it would cost you a down payment of $22,000, $6,000 in fees for loan at a 420 credit score. I am definitely not going to qualify. All right. Here's another one. You guys just start answering yes or no. The price is $160. The approximate value is $140. It rents for $13.50. It's not occupied, but the tenants pay the utilities. But wait a minute. Look at that kitchen. Is that the nicest kitchen you've ever seen? I mean, that is an awesome kitchen.
Beautiful.
I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous, right? This guy spent $25,000 on his kitchen in a townhouse. I couldn't believe it. It's absolutely gorgeous. I should say $25,000 on a kitchen and bathroom. But it's absolutely gorgeous, right? So no, nobody's going to buy it. I get it. All right. So, of course, could you even buy this house? The down payment, first of all, is $32,000. Plus, you have to put another $20,000 in because it's not going to appraise, right? And it's about $6,000 in fees for the loan. And, of course, with a 420 credit score, I am not going to qualify. All right. So, what is a good deal? I bought them all.
You used a loan shark, right? Because you had a bad credit.
You guys all have your cameras on so I could see the expressions on your face. Bet I know what the expressions are because I've done this presentation before. So I know the expression on your face and you're going, what? All right, so first of all, he comes on here and he says he lost all his money, he went bankrupt, and he's buying shitty properties.
It's the way to do it.
We got a yikes.
What kind of guests do you have on your show, Scott?
Hey.
The crazy ones.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So I bought them all subject to the original mortgage. And we're going to talk about how this works and why this works. So it all starts with a conversation like this. Reese is like, Reese's jacket is nice. Hey, Reese, you don't want to know why I wear a jacket like this? You ever hear somebody say, dress for success?
Right.
Well, you have to be extremely successful to have the nerve to dress like this.
And that's not the only jacket.
No, there's dozens of these, by the way. And by the way, can you write off your jackets on your tax return?
No, I can borrow yours.
I don't have to buy them.
The conversation, it all starts with a conversation that goes like this. Ready? What if, you ready? I took title to your house and took over the payments. Or what if I buy your house, I take over your payments and you don't have to worry about it anymore? And I'm going to tell you something. When you say that, hey, what if I took title to your house and took over the payments and you didn't have to worry about it anymore? Do you know what they say next? Can you do that? They go, can you do that? Or you can
Sure.
do that? And I'm going to say yes, because at that point I go, ka-ching, because I just made the sale. All I have to do now is explain it to them. So all I have to do is say, hey, if I took over the title to your house and took over your payments and you didn't have to worry about it anymore, would that work for you? And they go, can you do that? You got it. It's done. It's beautiful. All right. You're going to buy the property subject to. And I want to talk a little bit about what subject to means, because this is what people get confused with. They don't fully understand what subject to means. So real quick, I want to go over here and I want to show you this property. So remember this property? So this is an unusual subject to deal because I had to take $35,000 out of my pocket. But there was a reason that this one had to be $32,000. I'll talk about that later. But understand this is an unusual one. This is actually a very high one to take $35,000 out of my pocket. By the way, the equity went up by the way, the equity now in this property, I have now over 90,000 equity in this property. All right, so next one, I bought this one for $14,000 out of pocket. I'll explain why later too, and why that I had to pay $14,000. But check this one out. This one, remember this one, the 2-family house with the pizzeria, $1,724 I took out of my pocket to buy this property. Now, I'll tell you a funny story about this because it's the truth. It's really a funny story. My uncle, when he was alive, my uncle used to give his nephews $1,000 every year at the end of the year. And this year, or this year that I bought this property, he decided to up it. He decided to give us $2,000. And remember, I just went bankrupt. He knew I went bankrupt. He gave me $2,000, but he had one caveat to giving us the money. He would ask us what we spent the money on. So he gave me $2,000, and I told my uncle I bought a house. I bought a 2-family house with a pizzeria. And he laughed. And I said, no, really, Uncle Walter, that's really what I bought. And he goes, no, you didn't. I go, no, really, that's what I bought. And as a matter of fact, I had change left over. And he couldn't believe it. He could not believe that that was the truth. I think he died still not believing it. But it's the truth. All right. This one I bought for $950 out of my pocket. Remember this one? I would need $32,000 to buy it. I had a 420 square. At this point, I think I had a 560 credit score, which was a little bit later. But again, I would have had to do all this money, but I bought it for $950 out of my pocket. I bought all these properties subject to. So let's talk about two is liens and encumbrances. So let's talk about this real fast. Has anybody ever heard of something called a mechanics lien? If you've heard of a mechanics lien, just write yes in the chat box. You have, right? Thumbs up. Yes, you heard of mechanics lien, right? All right. So if I'm buying a property and the property is $100,000 and Scott's selling me this property for $100,000 and my title company does a title search on the property and they find out that Scott put new windows in this house. He got these windows from whatever, Shyster Window Company, and they had a $10,000 fee for these windows, and he decided to never pay for the windows. Shyster Window Company decided to put a mechanics lien against the house to get their $10,000. So I turned to Scott, I go, look, you got this mechanics lien for $10,000, and typically there's a couple of things that can happen here. Typically, Scott could just pay the $10,000. That's fine. He pays the $10,000 out of his proceeds if he wants. Or I could decide that I'll take the $10,000 and I'll just give him $90,000 for the house instead of $100,000, right? So those are the things that can happen. Now, if I decide I want to take the house with the $10,000, all I do is tell the title company, look, I'm taking the title subject to this mechanics lien with the window company. Now, I could actually call the window company later on and say, listen, I just bought this property. I found out there's a mechanics lien on it. It's done. It's already sold. Listen, I'll tell you what, I'll give you guys $5,000 and we'll call it even. And they may just decide to do that. But whatever they decide to do is fine. But you understand the concept that I can buy the house with the mechanics lien anytime I want. Or I can negotiate with Scott. Or I can say, listen, you pay it, or I can buy it anytime you want. So now, liens and encumbrances are the ways that you could buy the house. Now, here's the really cool thing. Subject to, I want you to understand, is not assuming a mortgage loan. So a lot of times people are saying, I'm assuming your loan. You are not assuming their loan. Very important. Basically, subject to is making payments for the seller. So you need to understand this. I'm going to get into this a little bit more. You need to understand this, making payments for the seller. Subject to is not fraud. All right, here's where it gets really crazy, because when you have a really dumb title company, a really dumb realtor. Any realtors on there? Or a really dumb attorney. Any attorneys on there? They're going to say, you can't do that. That's fraud. Well, not only is it not fraud, and everybody does this all the time, like me, but there's actually a line on the HUD-1. You guys know what a HUD-1 is, right? That's when you buy the property, you get the numbers, the HUD-1 report. There's actually a line on the HUD-1 that says subject to. So look at the HUD-1. So the paperwork that's created by the federal government actually talks about subject to. It is not fraud. Subject to is a legal way to acquire properties, and it's a way out for many sellers. So let's talk about how it works, because it's really important so you guys understand how it works. Now, my favorite thing to do is ask some specific questions, but let's talk some basics right now. There are basically three moving parts to a subject to deal. And these three moving parts are things that you may or may not understand yet. There's a deed, there's a mortgage, and a promissory note when you buy a property using a bank. So Calvin says we're not all dumb. I don't know which one he is, a lawyer or a real estate agent or a title guy. But you're right. You're not all dumb. I'm not sure if you're one of them. No, I'm like teasing you. But yeah, it's oh, you're an agent? Oh, you're in trouble. So there's three moving parts to a subject to deal. There's the deed, there's the mortgage, and there's the promissory note. Who owns a house? Put in the chat box somebody who owns a house that has a mortgage on it. Just say I do in the chat box. So if you have a house that you have a mortgage on, cool, Reese. All right, good. Let's do Reese first. Reese, since we got Reese first, Reese, how much of your home do you own? Put down in the chat box how much of your home do you own? All right, I'm not going to answer. Let me also go to Ken. Ken, how much of your home do you own? Put down in the chat box how much of your home do you own? So it's not 65 equity. The answer that I'm asking you is how much of it do you own? I mean, I don't know what your house is worth, but what percentage of your home do you own?
So Reese, you say 65,000 equity. How much is that?
So Ken says 100. Reese, what do you think? What do you think? What percentage of your home do you own, Reese? All right. Anybody else want to put in what percentage they own? 75%, Reese says. Okay, so you own 75%. Okay, great. Anybody else? Somebody else says 100. Okay, great. All right, excellent. So let's talk about this for a second. What's really important about this is you must know that the person who owns your home is the person whose name is on the title, not the bank. In fact, if you have a house,
It says 45%.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did we lose you, Larry? Is that like the other night?
I don't know if it's us or him.
I don't know. Did we freeze again? I think it's us.
So
100% of the house, whether they have a mortgage on it or not. All right. So I'm assuming somebody out there has a car loan. So if you have a car loan, and let's say the car is worth $20,000 and you owe $10,000. How much of your car do you own? Somebody put an answer in. How much of your car do you own? If the car is worth $20,000 and you owe $10,000, how much of the car do you own? $10,000. All right. Anybody else want to answer? How much of your car do you own if you owe $10,000 on a $20,000 car? Ken says 10,000. Anybody else? 0. Anybody else? 20,000. Okay, cool. You ready? Somebody actually got it right, which is unusual. You own none of your car.
Mhm.
It's a totally different animal. Who has the title to the car? The bank has the title to the car. They own the car. So if you owe $1 on your car and your car is worth $1 million, it's whatever car it is, and you own $1 on that car, the bank owns the car, not you. That's why they could come and they could take a tow truck, hook it up to the back, and take it away because they're lending you the car. They're saying they're giving you the privilege to drive the car until you pay it off, then they give you the title and it's yours. In a house, you own the house, and they cannot come in and take the house away from you at any point unless they go through a process called foreclosure. So who was the real estate agent? I'm sorry, who was the real estate agent before? Put yourself in there again. Just say I was, or the realtor, whatever. I forgot who you were. Just there's a bunch of chat messages up there. So when you go for there you go. So Calvin, you remember, Deborah, remember this? Remember when you had to learn the bundle of rights? Because this is the most important thing on your test. Yeah, you don't even remember it. I have real estate agents, they come here, I go, you remember this? They go, what is that? I go, it was on your test. So there's something on the bundle of rights, all right? Something called the bundle of rights. When you own a house, you have these bundle of rights. First one is possession. You own it. You enjoyment, disposition, the right to sell, exclusion, or the right to not exercise these rights. So you could possess it or you can not possess it because you have the right to not possess it. You can enjoy it or not enjoy it. How many people don't enjoy their house, which is kind of funny, right? You have the right to disposition or not. You could sell it or not sell it. So that's disposition. You could keep it, not sell it. And finally, you can say to somebody, I just don't want you in my house. That's exclusion. And of course, you have the right to not exercise any of these rights. Now, I want you to understand something. This will be important in a few slides. So remember this because this is really, really important. In a few slides, you'll get this in a little while. So there's something called a promissory note. And the promissory note is simply the loan. It basically says that you will make payment terms based on your promissory note. So when you sign for a loan, just like you sign for any other loan, if you borrowed $10,000 from a bank and the bank says, hey, sign here, it says you're going to pay this much money every month. This is your interest rate. This is after you make this many payments, you no longer owe us any more money. That is a promissory note. And that's simply the loan. There's a second part, which is called a mortgage. All right. So here's a question for you. Do you get a mortgage or do you give one? Put in, I get one, I give one, whatever, into the chat box. Do you get a mortgage or do you give a mortgage? Who wants to answer? Everybody's going, I'm not going to answer anything he's saying because he's tricking us every time, isn't he? You give one. Okay, Ken says you give one. Who else?
Never said give one.
You give one, right?
Yep.
All right.
South said give one.
You guys are a bunch of real estate investors who have either paid attention to me before or have actually studied. The answer is yes. You give a mortgage. Now it's funny because I'll get a bunch of people in the room, and I'll ask them this, and they'll go, "Huh? Well, I went to the bank and I got a mortgage." No, you went to the bank and you got a promissory note, and you gave them a mortgage. And most people don't understand what the mortgage is. The mortgage is simply a pledge, and it gives permission for the bank to foreclose if you don't pay the promissory note. So the promissory note is in, for example, if I went to the bank, the promissory note is in my name, Larry Steinhaus. The deed is in my name. And now there's a document that connects those two pieces together, which is called a mortgage. So most of the time people say, I paid my mortgage. You did not pay your mortgage. Every payment that you make every month to your bank is not a mortgage payment. It is a promissory note payment. It is not a mortgage payment. Now, in society, we've adapted the word mortgage payment, and we all know what that means, but it's technically incorrect. We're making a promissory note payment to get that mortgage off the property. All right, in a subject to deal, that pledge that person pledged, which was the mortgage, they gave the mortgage, it stays with the property. It doesn't go to the person, it stays with the property. So basically, remember before I buy the house subject to liens and encumbrances, we talked about the mechanics loan. A mortgage is exactly that. It's a lien on the house. So just like before, when I bought the house subject to the mechanics lien, I'm now buying the house subject to the mortgage, which is what the previous owner or the current owner has signed for. And literally, I'm going to promise to make their payment. Now look, Now, look, I got to talk to you about this. This is really, really important. This is important. I'm looking you square in the face, and I want you to understand this. If you take a subject to property over using the method I'm going to teach you to do it, and you promise to make somebody's payment, you better make their payment. If not, do not do this. Because if you do not make their payment, their credit score will be trashed. So if you have a $1,000 a month payment that you're going to take over, you must make that payment, whether there's tenants in a place or not tenants in a place, because you will upset someone else's life.
Yep.
So when you do this, you make sure you fully understand that you must make this payment. Now,
They get foreclosed on too, right, Larry?
well, that's a different story. That's not your problem. You just lose the property.
Yeah.
But you're gonna destroy somebody's life. You know, you lose the property, great, but you destroyed somebody's life by not making the payment. So you want to make sure that you do it. I look them square in the face and I say, you know, and I say I will make their payment. What sometimes people do is they do this and they go, well, you know, I can't rent it anymore. I'm just not going to pay the payment and screw the person who sold it to me. Don't do that. That's just bad. That's just all around bad. So again, if you can't do it, look, if you come across a subject to deal and you're afraid you can't make the payment, call me. I'll give you a couple of bucks for the subject to deal, because I would rather you just not do it, because you'll hurt them pretty bad. Now on the other side, they may be behind on their payment. So if they're behind on their payment, let's say they're behind 3 payments and $1,000 a month, you have to come up with $3,000 to catch it up. Now remember that their credit score is now trashed because they're behind 3 months on their payment. But if you start making the payment regularly, you're going to improve their credit score. How do I know this is true? Because I've taken over payments, subject to payments, and I get letters sent to me because we have their address on. This is their address on file. I get a letter sent to me to open up new credit cards to say their credit is better. It's amazing. So you actually can help somebody out a lot. If their credit score is bad, you can help somebody out by making the payments for them. So it's kind of a great benefit. All right. Here are some negatives to the seller. The first one is the loan remains in their name. We just talked about that, okay? Here's one that's also important. They have to explain the loan when applying for credit. So what this means is if they have a $1,000 a month payment and they go to buy another house, their debt to income ratio might be too high to qualify for a mortgage, right? So that might be a problem. Now, I will tell you that we've done a lot of research on this. We've talked to mortgage brokers, and we actually solved this problem. However, there is a caveat to this. So Debbie's asking, can they claim back the house? Absolutely not. They no longer own it. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But they have to explain the loan when applying for credit. Now, if you buy a house from somebody subject to, and they're going to buy another house tomorrow, it's probably not going to work out. But if they're not going to buy a house for at least 6 months to 12 months, you're okay. And this is why. FHA, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac guidelines say that if somebody takes over your payment subject to, and they could prove that they're making that payment for 6 to 12 months, so if somebody else is making that payment for 6 to 12 months, and somebody can prove it, it's ignored. How cool is that? So I actually have sellers that I bought houses from subject to. They call me up 3 years later. They go, Larry, I'm trying to buy a house. I know what to do. This problem, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, calm down. Who's the mortgage broker? And they give me a mortgage broker's name. I call them up. I explain this to them because every mortgage broker goes, huh? What? What's subject to? Anyway, I say, listen, this is what we did. Let me send you my bank account showing you that the money for this payment comes out of my bank account every month, that the payment's on time. And then they go to the underwriter and the underwriter goes, yeah, this is fine. This is subject to. And the mortgage broker goes, oh, I never heard that before. So it gets done, no problem. They get their mortgage, no problem. So that's
I got some
great.
questions in the chat, Larry, if you're not seeing it.
Then can the bank call payment due in full when the deed changes? Oh my gosh, you must have been reading the slides. They share the risk of the due on sale clause. All right. It's so funny how everybody does that. They know exactly where I'm going. All right. They share the risk of the due on sale clause. But by the way, it is not the acceleration clause. It is the alienation clause. So this is the due on sale clause is called the alienation clause, not the acceleration clause. The acceleration clause is when you don't make your payments, they can accelerate the loan. The alienation clause says that when you transfer the property to somebody else, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's talk about due on sale clause, which is the alienation clause. Due on sale clause is a clause in a loan of a promissory note that stipulates that the full balance of the loan may be called due on sale upon transfer of ownership of the property used to secure the note. The lender has the right, but not the obligation, to call the note due on sale in such a circumstance. All right, here we go. This is where this gets exciting and fun, and how it works, and how you will probably never, ever have to worry about this. I'm going to talk about how this works. So first of all, you need to understand that it says the loan may be called. The bank doesn't have to call the loan if they don't want to. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to, and it doesn't mean that little $12 an hour CSR who figures out that the property was transferred isn't going to call the bank manager and say, this property was transferred. We need to do the due on sale clause. And somebody's going to get so excited and say, hey, let's do it. But I'm going to show you how not to do that, how that won't happen. But they also don't have the obligation to call it either. So the first thing you're thinking is, hey, if I make the payments for that person, they're probably not going to foreclose on a house. Don't think that, because they will. I get people who call me who are not students. They call me up and they say, "Oh, I heard you're the subject to guy. I took this property over subject to, and the bank's calling the note." And the first thing I ask is, "Let me guess, you bought it in an LLC?" And they go, "Yeah. How'd you know?" I go, "Because that's why the bank is calling the note." Or you have a property right now in your own name. So Scott has a property in his own name. I'll bet you he did this too. You ready? He has a property in his own name because he wanted to get the mortgage on it. And he's like, hey, I went to some real estate adventure, some real estate meeting, and they told me I should buy all my properties in LLCs. I'm going to move my property into an LLC. You move the property into an LLC, and the bank calls you up and says, oh, no, sorry, that's alienation. We're done. Give me my money. That happens all the time. I have people call me up. You're the subject to guy. I don't understand. Why did they do that? Because you can't move the property out of your name into a LLC or into somebody else's name without triggering an event, which could be the alienation clause. So right now you guys are going, well, I hope there's a way to do this, because if there's not a way to do this, I just wasted an hour talking to Larry. I promise you, if you hang out, you won't waste an hour. Are you loving this, Scott, or what?
Oh, yeah. Good.
All right. So I'm going to show you how smart I am, because I know something about something called the Garn St. Germain Depository Institution Act of 1982. Am I brilliant or what? That I can actually call up such a thing? So what basically happened in 1982 was Garn and St. Germain got together and said, hey, we got all these people who buy properties and they don't want them in their name anymore. So if you've ever done any estate planning, you know that you should own nothing. Hey, Scott, how many properties do I own?
How many properties do you own? None.
I own none. All right, here's a trick question for you. How many properties does my LLC own?
I don't know. I don't know your LLC.
I don't remember.
Yeah. You ready?
None.
None. You did it again, Scott. You brought a guy on who went bankrupt. You brought a guy on who buys properties that don't make any sense, and you brought a guy on who doesn't own any properties, and his LLC doesn't own any properties either.
But he makes more money than us, so he's got to be doing something, right?
What about a land trust?
So you ready? I'm going to show you something really interesting. Oh, I don't have my wallet on me. Oh, so I can't show you. So in my wallet, I usually carry about $1,000 in my wallet at all times, because I hate walking around without money. If anybody sued me right now, that's all I can get, because I own nothing. I don't even own the house I live in. I don't own the cars I drive. I have a Corvette Z06 7-speed 2017 $120,000 car. If you guys don't believe me, look it up. I don't own it. There's no money owed on it, but I don't own it. So I'm going to teach you guys how to buy properties and never have ownership of the property and never have a problem with this. So first of all, the Garn St. Germain Act said that if I move property out of my name for estate planning purposes, and I move it into something called a trust, not a land trust, a trust, I could now move anything into this trust, and I no longer own it. So the Garden-St. Germain Act said that if somebody does this for asset protection, and as long as they remain the beneficial interest, the beneficiary of the trust, that the bank cannot call the loan due on sale. Well, a bunch of real estate investors figured out the obvious loophole to this, and we're going to talk about the obvious loophole to this. If I buy my property in a trust, and by the way, I have lots and 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 lots of trusts that I control. I don't own any properties, but I control a lot of trusts. So in a trust, there are three parts to a trust. The first one is the owner. The next one is the beneficiary. And third is the trustee. Let's go through this. So the owner of the property is literally the trust or the name of the trust. So if I go to buy a property, 123 Main Street, I typically will buy the property in 123 Main Street Trust. So I'm out there and I'm talking to you, Scott, and you want to sell me a property, and you say, hey, we come to terms, we agree. I take out my agreement of sale, and I write Scott Ford is the seller, and then I write 123 Main Street Trust is the buyer. So you guys are buying houses in LLCs, right? You're making the biggest mistake ever, because you're going out to buy this property from Scott, and you have the whatever. You have Zoom LLC. You have Zoom LLC, whatever it might be, right? And Zoom LLC is formed, and you have 5 properties in Zoom LLC, and you now put the 6th property in Zoom LLC because you don't want to form another LLC before you buy the property, right? The problem with that is now all 6 of those properties are in the same LLC, and they're all liable for each other. So if one gets sued, the other one's going to can get affected. If I buy a property in a trust, I buy each property in one individual trust. So the building I'm in right now, I own this property, or literally I don't own the property. A trust owns this property. So where I'm standing right now is 108 Corporate Drive East. A trust owns this property. It is the only property in that trust. That's it. So if somebody comes here, slips and falls, and they sue me, they're not going to get anywhere. They have to sue the trust. They sue the trust, and they win. They get the property, and I have all my other properties fully protected. They can't touch any of them. In fact, if you go into a nursing home, Medicaid will pay for your nursing home if you own nothing. This is advanced planning, and I talk about this in my seminars, but you'll go into a nursing home, and if you own nothing, Medicaid will pay anything. If you own anything, you have to sell those assets to pay for the nursing home before Medicaid will kick in. So if you have kids and you want to preserve your assets for your kids, you can either give them to a nursing home or you can give them to your kids. I realize that most of you want to give them to a nursing home because that's the way you set up your assets right now. But come here and talk to me, and I'll teach you how to not give them to a nursing home and how to get Medicaid, all these taxes that you've been paying all these years, and they're about to go up again. If you're paying all these taxes, why not let Medicaid pay for them and let your kids get your properties? I will teach you how to do that, by the way, using this. All right. So Deborah says, do I know a good attorney that does trust that you would share? Absolutely not, because there's no such thing.
Harry Friedman.
I create my own trusts, and I will talk about that another time. So the owner, again, is the name of the trust. The beneficiary is the person in which the property or the trust is being held for. And finally, the trustee is the person in which the beneficiary trusts to control the property. The trustee is usually entrusted not to tell or not to disclose the beneficiary of the property. So let's talk about this for a minute. Remember that the trustee is the person who's entrusted to hold the property for the beneficiary. So the trust is the owner of the property. So literally a piece of paper owns the property. A piece of paper owns the property. That's it. There is nothing else but this piece of paper that owns this property. Inside this piece of property, there is a beneficiary. So if the person who has the trust is the beneficiary, the person who controls the piece of paper is called the trustee. Here's something really interesting. If I'm the trustee, Larry Sinus is the trustee, I can also be the beneficiary. So I can literally control the property for myself. in this case, I become schizophrenic. No, you don't. Yes, you do. And that is why this is so powerful. The trustee is the person who is in charge of the bundle of rights. This is the coolest thing. So the trustee is in charge of possession, in charge of enjoyment, in charge of disposition, and in charge of exclusion. So I don't own anything. I control a lot. Millions and millions of dollars worth of properties I control, but I don't own any of them. That's what we're teaching you here. That's what you do. So I'm going to tell you what will happen. You'll put it in a trust. Now, remember we said before the Garden St. Germain Act says what? It says that the person who is, if the property goes into a trust and the beneficial interest stays the same, it can't trigger the due on sale clause. Here's the really cool thing about trust. They're not filed anywhere. The only person who knows the beneficiary or the trustee of the trust are the people involved in the trust. The trustee knows who he is, the beneficiary knows who he is, and both of them have either a copy of the trust or they know where the trust is. There is no recording of a trust. There can't be, you can record if you want to, but there's no recording of a trust. It's a private document. In fact, the beneficiary, the trustee, is in charge of who gets to see the trust. So the beneficiary could be me. So if I took the property from Scott, I put it in my name, subject to, I took over his payment, and I moved the property into 123 Main Street Trust. Now the bank can't foreclose on the property unless they find out that the beneficiary is no longer Scott. So here's the interesting thing. The bank calls me up. They go, Mr. Steinhaus, I understand you're the trustee of 123 Main Street Trust. And I go, yeah, that's me. Who's the beneficiary? I can't tell you that. I'm the trustee, and in my trust document, it says that I cannot reveal the name of the beneficiary. But you have to. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. You have to get a court order. Now, if they get a court order, so they can find out who the beneficiary is. Now, first of all, they're not getting a court order because it's expensive to get a court order. The other thing that's really interesting about that is 5 minutes after I get served the paperwork, I can change the name of the beneficiary to anybody I want. So I call up Scott, I go, listen, Scott, I need to make you 1/10 owner of the property for about a month. Is that okay with you? I don't care.
Sure, no problem.
And then I go to, and I say, okay, here it is. The beneficiary is Scott. He's got 1/10 ownership. Okay, thanks. That's all we need to know. Boy, you guys wasted a lot of money to find out what you already knew. They're not going to do it. So that's what's really, really cool. So in other words, Chris has a quick question. Are you able to finance buying a property with a bank? Hard money, losing a trust. Hard money, no problem. Private loan, no problem. Banks are a little more difficult, but I actually have a bank that I use all the time that finances my trust all the time. You're looking for what's called a portfolio lender. So a portfolio lender keeps inside. Was that? Yeah. Portfolio lenders keep the loans inside their own house, and those are the people you're looking for. So I use Univest Bank for here. I don't know if they'll do it in New Jersey, but Univest Bank is a great one if you want to do that. So I do it all the time.
Are they a standard bank, Larry?
What?
Are they a standard bank, or are they just a specialty bank?
They're a bank. I mean, I don't know. They're just a bank. They're a small bank. They probably have. I think they have 13 branches.
Okay.
You're looking for a portfolio lender. Wells Fargo is not going to do it. By the way, Wells Fargo can do it. They just don't know how to do it. So you talk to the mortgage broker at Wells Fargo, and he just scratches his head going, they didn't teach me this in Wells Fargo school. So they don't. So they say no. But the fact is, we've actually shown them how to do it, and then we realize it's easier to find a portfolio lender than to teach the mortgage broker how to do it. So we don't even bother anymore. All right. So let's go back to the subject and what we were talking about. So why would anybody do this? Why would anybody sell you a property subject to when the loan remains in their name, they have to explain the loan when applying for credit, and they share the risk of the due on sale clause? Right? Anybody out there asking the same question? Yeah, of course you are, right? So I'm going to tell you a story about this. It's kind of an interesting story. So one day, I'm in a seminar, and the seminar was similar to the one I'm giving you now. In fact, the seminar was being hosted by my partner, Phil Falcone. We own Investor Schooling together, and he was hosting a seminar. It was something like 11 years ago, I think it was. He was doing a presentation on this very topic, subject to. I had never heard of it before. And I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting inside the room, and I'm sitting next to you, or next to the next guy, next to the next guy, next to the next guy, and I'm fidgeting. I'm going, what the hell? What? How could anybody? Why would anybody do this? This is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. And he continues on. He starts to explain it all, and blah 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 blah. And I leave, and I go, get out of here. Nobody would ever do that. So literally, 2 weeks later, I'm meeting with a client. So at the time I was working for an IT company, I'm meeting with a client, and we're having lunch. And she says to me, by the way, I don't know what to do. I have this property, and we owe, my husband and I owe $180,000 on this property, and he literally won't divorce me unless I sell the property. I said, well, what's going on with it? She goes, I listed it for $185,000 with a real estate agent. I just want to get out. What do you think I should do? I'm like, first of all, if you sell it for full price, you come into closing with about $20,000. You guys do that math, right? You come into closing with about $20,000 between real estate fees, transfer taxes, and whatever. If you sold it for full price, that's $20,000. She goes, I know, I don't care. I'm like, really? You wouldn't care? She goes, I just want to get divorced from this guy so badly. I just want out. I'm like, really? So I start thinking about this class I was in, this subject to class, and I look at her and I go, well, what if I took over your payment, took over the property, and you didn't have to worry about it anymore? And she said,
Absolutely.
can you do that? And I said, yeah, I could do that. Honestly, I had no freaking clue how to do it. But I knew I could do it because I just went to this seminar 3 weeks ago, and Phil Falcone told me I could do it, so I did it. So I said, okay, yes. So, of course, I didn't have any paperwork. What? What's that? Oh, somebody's muted. So, of course, I didn't have any paperwork with me. But it was basically the concept was understood. She knows I was going to take it over. So I looked at her, I said, okay, I'll take it over, blah, blah. Then she looks at me and she goes, but I have to ask Mark first. I'm like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. I knew this was full of crap. You know, yeah, she wants to get rid of the property. She wants to get divorced. But now I got to deal with the husband who, I mean, no wonder there's no way this is going to work. So I said, all right, why don't you set up a three-way phone call? I'll talk to him. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to him again and with you on the phone. And we'll talk about this. And I'll explain it to him. So the day comes for this appointment. I get on the phone, and I'm talking to him. Now, remember, this is my first subject to deal. I am nervous. I don't even know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay you $1 for the property. I'm going to take over the mortgage payment. I'm going to make the mortgage payment, and the deed and the mortgage and the promissory note and I swear I must have been rambling for half an hour. It was total insanity, right? I mean, look at me. I'm a pretty confident guy, and I'm like, I just kept going. Now, finally. What do you do? What do you do, Scott? Scott, you've been in sales before, right?
What do you do?
So
What the hell are you talking about?
When you're going to close, what do you do?
When I'm going to close, what am I going to do?
Yeah, so you close, you say, do you want to buy it? What do you do next?
Do you want to buy it?
Yes.
You shut up, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everybody in sales knows that. Do you want to buy it? Shh, don't say another word, and you wait for them to say the next word. So I'm like, what do you think? I swear it must have been 10 minutes that went by. Yeah, it was probably more like 10 seconds. But it felt like 10 minutes. And he goes, let me get this straight. I'm like, oh, crap. You're going to buy this property for $1, right? I'm like, yeah. You're going to make my mortgage payments, right? Yeah. You're going to promise you're going to make the mortgage payment, right? Yeah. I don't own the property anymore, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I would never sell a property for $1. I'm like, oh, crap. So it's $1 and a case of Rolling Rock. No joke. That's what he said. It's $1 and a case of Rolling Rock. Now, for you guys who don't know what Rolling Rock is, it's a beer. It's a case of beer. You want $1 a case of beer? I'm like, okay. I'll get the paperwork out to you right away. I send him the paperwork. He signs it. She signs it. We go to closing. I write a check for $1. Donna sends the check to Mark and says, F you on the check. That was what she did. And that was my first subject to property. Now look, right? This is basically why she did it. She did it. I hate this property and I can't get divorced until it's sold. That was why she didn't care. She didn't care. This is one of my greatest properties. I have over $100,000 equity in this property, and I've already taken a second loan in this property for $100,000. So not only did I take over her mortgage subject to her original $160,000 mortgage subject to, I borrowed $100,000 on top of the property in the second mortgage, and I still have $100,000 equity, and I make about $600 a month profit still with both mortgages. Isn't that awesome?
It's the way to do it.
Yeah. Remember this one? I bought this house for $14,000 out of pocket. All right. Here's the deal with this one. Crazy stuff. My sister is the tenant, and it cost me $500 to let her rent it from me, and she never pays the rent on time. So she's subsidizing her sister's rent by eating $500 a month, and the sister doesn't even have the courtesy to pay the rent on time. So remember the $14,000? I said that's unusual. The reason that she was paying $500 a mortgage extra on this property was because she had a second mortgage of $14,000, and I decided to pay the $14,000 on the second mortgage when I bought the property. I didn't have to, but I decided to because I didn't want to have the $500 deficit. So then it broke even, and I made money, and I had the sister sign a lease, and the sister pays the rent within 3 days, all the time now, because she now gets a $100 late fee if she doesn't pay the rent on time. She realizes she's no longer dealing with her sister. She's now dealing with a professional landlord. I like the woman. She's actually a really nice, sweet woman. She's still a tenant. I've had her as a tenant for 6 years. I now have, in this property, I now have $70,000 equity in this property. At the time, I gave the seller $1,000 because I felt bad that I was taking over her property and there was no equity in it. I gave her $1,000 just for her time to show up at closing. Now there's $70,000 equity in it, and the sister is now paying the rent on time. This one is one of my favorites, $950 out of my pocket, right? So I just want to show you how I came up with the $950. The closing costs on this one was about $5,000. I collected 3 months rent in advance, and it rents for $1,350, and the cash flows for about $125. By the way, I now get $1,750 for this property, so it's really, really nice.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
What I want to talk to you about, is when you get a property under contract, always do this, especially if it's vacant. Always ask the seller for permission to show it to tenants while it's under contract before you close it. So in this case, what I basically did is kind of funny. What I basically did was I was showing it to tenants. I found a tenant, and the tenant wanted to move in, on Friday, which happened to be the day I was buying the property or closing on the property. So I said two things. I said, okay, number one, I said, I'm literally buying the property that day. I can't clean it. And they go, we don't care. We'll clean it. I'm like, yes. The second one was, listen, just in case the deal falls apart, I'm just going to sign a piece of paper that says if the deal falls apart, you can't move in. And they go, okay, fine. So I literally go to closing with $5,000 that I borrowed on a credit card. I walk in, I collect $4,500 in, almost $4,500, and I paid a credit card off the next day. So it cost me $950 to buy this property. That's how cool this is. This guy who was selling the property, by the way, he was being deployed. He was stuck. He owed more money on this property by about $30,000 than it was worth. He had it on the market. Nobody would buy it. I came to him, look, what if I took over your payment, took over the property? And he said, can you do that? And I said, yes. And we did it. And that's exactly what happened. He can't leave the home vacant. He wants to get out. This one was $35,000. Again, this is unusual, but I want to explain the unusualness about this and why it came up. So this guy had 2 mortgages on the property. The second mortgage was the problem. The second mortgage was $35,000 mortgage, and the bank called the loan. So this was in 2009, I think it was. and banks are just calling loans like crazy. He had a 5-year loan on this. He owed $35,000 a second mortgage, 5-year loan. He went to the bank. He goes, look, property values are down. I can't refinance it. Will you at least let me make payments on it? And they said, no. If you don't pay us $35,000 by the end of next month, you have to give us $1,000 a month penalty. He was like, what the hell kind of crap is that? So I bought the house from him. I paid off the $35,000 because I had to pay up the $35,000, so I didn't have the penalty. I bought the house. I loved it. In fact, I actually moved into it for a while because while I was in between houses, I actually moved into this house, lived there for a couple of years, and now I rent this house for $1,800. And the property value in this house is worth about $270,000 now, and I technically paid $200,000 for it, and all I do is pay the $35,000 to acquire it. All right, subject 2 is literally a way out for many sellers. So how many people out there want to know how to find subject 2 properties? Ben, if you don't want to know how to find subject 2 properties, I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, hello. 2 hands up.
You guys want to know how to find subject 2 properties? All right, because if you guys don't want to know how to find subject 2 properties, I'll just end here. Hey, should I just end here? Scott?
What's that? No.
No, I got my notepad. I got a pen. I'm ready.
All right. Well, first,
Go.
I have a gift for you guys. You guys want gifts? You guys like gifts?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
All right.
Nice.
That's it's a gold box.
There you go. Gold box.
Oh, I love gold boxes.
Isn't that cool? But first, you guys want to hear about you want to hear about my favorite subject 2 property?
Yeah.
This is a case study that I literally made 1,000% return because of a subject 2 deal. So let's talk about this deal. So first of all, I call it my subject 2 wholesale lease option deal. Woo! So if you guys know how to wholesale, know how to lease option, and know how to do subject 2, you can do a deal like this too. And if you don't know how to do it, come to Investor School and I'll teach you how to do it. So this is what happens. Basically, I drive around with a van. I'm not trying to say a van, a truck, and it says I buy houses. So my truck says I buy houses. I get a phone call. Woman calls me up and she goes, I saw your truck. It says I buy houses. She goes, I have a house to sell. Can you help me? I said, sure. Tell me about the house. And that there is a picture of the house. So I go, what do you want for it? And she goes, I don't know. She goes, I don't know what it's worth. So she gives me the address, and while I'm talking to her, I look on Zillow, and Zillow says it's worth $200,000. So I'm curious. I figured most people look at Zillow, so she's going to say $200,000, right? So she says, I don't know what it's worth. Zillow says it's worth $200,000. So, well, tell me about it. She goes, oh, it needs a new kitchen. I'm like, all right. And then I go, what else does it need? She goes, I don't know. It might even need a new bathroom. I said, okay, great. I said, let me go see it. I'll see what I can do for you. Have your mortgage statement available. So she has her mortgage statement available. By the way, you always want to have them have their mortgage statement available when you're looking at houses because you want to know if it's a good deal. So she shows me her mortgage statement, and she's got $97,000 that she owes on this mortgage. It turns out it's a 15-year mortgage, and she's 8 years into it already. So what does that mean? That means that $900 of her $1,600 a month payment is going to principal. I'm like, wow, this is freaking awesome. But you need to know that when I walk into the house, I knock on the door, she answers the door, and she is a hoarder. Ugh. By the way, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you ever run into a hoarder, you need to just look at dollar signs. Hoarders are the greatest people to buy houses from because no realtor will touch them. They don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to do showings. They're embarrassed, but they don't even know why they're embarrassed. So I walk into the property, right? I walk in, she walks in, and I swear, this is what she does. She points down at the bottom at one pile, and she goes, I'm really sorry, my Christmas stuff is still out. I wasn't ready, I didn't know you would come and I left my Christmas stuff out. I'm thinking to myself, that is the neatest spot in this entire house. Then I walk in and she points to the couch and she goes, have a seat. Now I'm looking at this couch. There is nothing anywhere that somebody could literally sit on. But I see this little spot about that big. Now, she's a little skinny woman. Little skinny woman, she might weigh 95 pounds wet, right? And I'm looking at my ass and I'm going, there ain't no way I'm going to fit into that spot. But I figure it out. I sit down. And she goes, let me tell you about the property. I'm like, all right. So when I walked in, I also noticed on the right side that there was a wall missing. You know, like you ever see somebody take a wall out and, you know, they're supposed to put a beam in the middle to support the wall because the wall was holding the house up? Well, apparently whoever took this wall out didn't know that because there's now a giant crack in the house that looks like this. So there's a beam in the house with a crack that looks like this. Now, I looked at that beam as soon as I walked in. I didn't say anything, but I looked at the beam as soon as I walked in. I sit down. She starts talking to me. She goes, I got to move. What can you do? I said, look, I could buy this house in as little as 2 weeks. Let's talk. I go, let me see your mortgage statement. She shows me the mortgage statement, $97,000. I look around the house. I look at her. By the way, the kitchen, no, it didn't need a kitchen. It needed everything. I mean, if there was one cabinet with a door on it, that was a lot. And I don't even think that door opened. When I went into the bathroom, you ever see a house that's been vacant for a long time and what the toilet bowl looks like when it's vacant for a long time? That's what this toilet looked like. Now, she had a 13-year-old kid living there. I swear, if I wasn't buying the house, I would have called Child Protective Services. That's how bad this house was. And it had a crack in it, right? In the wall. So I looked at her, I go, look, I got to be honest with you. I don't even think your house is worth what your mortgage is. And she looks at me, she goes, I agree. And I said, this is what I could do for you. I could take over your house. I could take over the property. I could take over your point payment. And you don't have to worry about it anymore. And she goes, how quickly can you close? I go, I could probably close in as little as 2 weeks. She goes, can you give me 3? I'm like, you got it. So we make the deal. It cost me about $3,800 to close on this property. That's it. Because all I had to do was pay transfer tax. Now, the interesting thing was, by the time I closed, she made another payment. So when she made another payment, I actually only owed about 90. I think she made 2 payments at that point. So I only owed like 95,000 or 96,000, whatever it was. I decided to put it up on the MLS. By the way, there's another trick. If you're ever going to rehab a property, as soon as you buy it, close on it, put it on the MLS because you might actually get a lot of money for it. This has actually worked for me several times, including this. So I put it on the MLS for $150. I figured, what's the difference? Somebody gives me $150. Why do I want to rehab it? Because my intention for this was to rehab it and then sell it. I could sell this property for about $300,000 if I rehabbed it, right? And the rehab I was looking at was about $100,000. So I decided to put it on the MLS, and I actually put in the MLS, I go, seller financing available. Now, if you're a real estate investor and you don't have any money, you are loving this, but it doesn't sell. So about 3 or 4 weeks go by, and I actually start talking to contractors and getting everything ready, when all of a sudden I literally take it off the MLS, which is kind of funny. I take it off the MLS, and a real estate agent calls me up and goes, listen, that property you had over there, 548 Continental, is it still available? I go, well, I'm probably going to rehab it. They go, well, I found a buyer. There's a buyer who wants to buy it. He'll give you $142,000 for it right now. I go, okay. Talk to me about that. They go, and what's the story with the seller financing thing? I said, here's how it works. They would take a lease option. They give me $10,000 up front, and they'll pay me $2,000 a month. And then when they sell it, they get whatever they want. The lease option will be for $142,000. They give me $10,000 now, and they pay me $2,000 a month. Remember, my mortgage payment on this was $1,600. So I now get a check for $10,000. I've already made money. That's the wholesale part. How many of you guys would wholesale a property for $10,000? All you guys would. You'd take a $10,000 fee in a heartbeat, right? I got a $10,000 fee immediately. Then I get $400 a month payment, right? I get $400 a month payment. And remember that each payment that he gives me when I make the payment to the mortgage company, it's $900 principal comes off the top. So he keeps this thing for about 6 months. By the time he's done, my balance on this loan was $89,000. That's all I owed in this house. He still owes me the difference between $89,000 and $132,000. by the way, my contract also says he pays all closing costs and he paid taxes on both sides. So I ended up making over $52,000 on this property because I knew how to do subject to. All right. You guys ready for your gift now?
Yes.
Yes.
Did I teach you guys long enough?
Everybody wants a gift, right?
Look at Adam, man. He's on the edge of his seat. He's going, dude, what? Where? What?
Oh
What?
yeah, we got a
He's looking
hell
for the gold.
yeah. We got I love presents.
All right, here it comes. Gold box. I want you to go to sub2letter.com. And when you go to sub2letter.com, you're going to find the letter that I use to prospect for subject to properties. Let me tell you about this letter. This letter is freaking fantastic. All right? It's basically going to be sent to people who have bought houses in the last 3 or 4 years, and they bought it with an FHA loan. And here's what happens. So somebody buys a house, they buy a house 3 years ago, and they pay $100,000 for it. And they get seller assist of $10,000 to buy the house. Now they get their loan, and their loan is $99,000 for the $100,000 house that they're trying to buy. And all of a sudden, something happens. They got to move to California. They can't afford the house anymore. They're getting divorced. Whatever. And they can't sell the house because they owe more money than the house is worth, or they are really close to what the house is worth. And every real estate agent goes in there and says, listen, you know, I can get you 105, but you're gonna have to pay me $10,000 to get 105. Plus you have to pay closing costs and blah, 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 blah. And they go, well, I don't have that money. I gotta borrow money from the FHA from the seller to buy the house. How am I gonna do this? So I send them a letter that basically this letter, and you can, if you've already gone there, you've already read the letter. And actually, you can't read it. You got to go there. You got to put your email in, and it sends it to you. But when you read this letter is all about that. It says, hey, if you bought your house recently and you need to move, I have a solution that won't cost you anything. You read the letter, you'll get it. Send this out to people who have zero equity in their house. So if you want to do a list, go to List Source, whatever list company you use. Go there, find houses with zero equity. If you have zero equity or less, because by the way, it doesn't matter. Remember the subject to that I showed you these houses? Some of them had less than zero equity. Some of them, they're $30,000 minus equity, right? And I bought the house. It doesn't matter. All you care about is the payment, and all you care about is what you can rent it for. Who cares? That's what this letter is for. The letter will work, and it'll work every time if somebody needs to sell their house. All right. So sub2letter.com, you're going to go there right now, and you're going to put in your name, you're going to get the email. Hey, Adam, is that call for me? Are you calling all your friends and telling them to go to sub2letter.com to get the letter? It's no fun when you got them all muted. All right. Who has?
We can unmute everybody.
No, that's right. Yeah, unmute everybody. Who has questions? Shout them out. Who's got questions? I don't know if they're unmuted. You might have to. If you have a question, say I have a question in the box, and I'll unmute you. Chris has a question. There you go, Chris. What's going on?
So what's your favorite site for getting the leads, like you're saying, doing the zero equity?
Any list company is fine. I mean, I use List Source. I also use a company called
PropStream?
Mailbox Power. We do a presentation on Mailbox Power, which is pretty amazing. If you go to mailboxpower.com and you decide you want to use this system, just put in the word investors as your invitation code. This thing is fantastic. It'll even do all the mailing for you. I mean, I do a whole presentation on this company because it's that good. So if you go to mailboxpower.com, you can do lists from there. You can also go to List Source. You go to any list company you want. You're just looking for houses that have zero equity or less. And those are the ones you're going to send it to. All right, who else has questions?
What about the contracts for purchasing a property?
That is the hardest part. It's okay. Anybody have a 1 or 2 page agreement of sale that they use? So if you don't have a 1 or 2 page agreement of sale, come to Investor Schooling. We'll teach you how to use a 1 or 2 page agreement of sale. You don't want to use you can use the New Jersey Association of Realtors or Pennsylvania Association of Realtors 15-page annoying contract. But now you've got somebody going, well, let me take this to my attorney. I got a 1-page contract or a 2-page contract that says $1 subject to the mortgage. That's literally what it says. And then I take it over. We have to have a meeting of the minds first. If you have a meeting of minds first, the paperwork is nothing. All you do is bring it to your title company, and your title company will do the rest for you. So paperwork is really, really easy. Now, I do a complete second part to this presentation that talks about things like insurance and talks about things like the mortgage company and how to talk to the mortgage company. It's just that there's not enough time to do this all in one part. But just know that the most important piece of paper is the agreement of sale. Get it under contract for $1, subject to the mortgage. That's it. If you do that, that's all you got to do. All right. Who else has a question?
Got one, Larry.
Go ahead, Adam.
Larry, one of the things that confused me is that suppose somebody has a lot of equity in their house, okay? And of course they have, and that because some people may have, let's say 100,000 in equity, but then they still owe something crazy like 250 that they're struggling with. You know, are we paying? I mean, we paying them that 100,000 that they have in equity?
It all depends on the deal. So now you're going to look at, so if they have a $250,000 mortgage, and then they have a second mortgage with 100,000, and the house is worth, I don't know, anywhere near that, 350, let's say, I'll make both payments. That's fine.
Okay. Right.
What this question also leads to a second part is, what if they have an equity loan that has a limit of 100,000, but they've only borrowed 35,000, right? Now,
Right.
you got to be careful with this. There's two things you can do. One is you tell them, listen, write yourself the check for 65,000 and take it, because that's the best way to get the equity out. Or if there's no equity anymore, you know, because you don't want to do it that way, you say, you know, you need to write a letter closing the draw period. So in other words, they can keep the loan out, but they're writing a letter to the bank saying, I no longer want to be able to draw on this, and then the bank will make it so they can't draw on it. You just ask that as a prerequisite before you close.
All right, so you're okay with giving them the value of what they have in equity?
I'm the only guy who walks out there and gives them more than the house is worth.
Okay.
I do this all the time. This is great.
Right.
I'll give you a great subject to deal I did in December. Right? I go into this house. This house is gorgeous. I can't believe this guy owes $255,000 in his house. And in its condition, it's probably worth 220, right? Every wholesaler has offered him 160, 170. He's got tenants in there. This is the crazy part. The tenants are paying $3,400 a month to live there.
Wow.
His payment is $1,100 a month. That doesn't include taxes. The tax is $9,000, but his payment is $1,100 a month. And I looked at the guy. I go, "Why do you want to sell this?" I said, "This is a cash cow." He goes, "I hate being a landlord." I said, "Well, do the tenants pay on time?" He goes, "Most of the time." I go, "So what's the problem?" He literally got belligerent. "I don't want this property anymore." I'm like, "Okay." I said, "I'll tell you what I could do. I can take over your payment. I'll take over the property. You don't have to worry about it anymore." And he said,
Take it.
"Can you do that?" Right? I'm telling you guys, it's much better in person. He goes, "Do that," but anyway, it's fine. But I'm telling you, that's exactly what he said. I said, "Absolutely." So I took over this property. It's worth less than the mortgage now. I'm making over $1,000 a month cash flow on this property. It cost me $7,600 to close on the property, which, by the way, I borrowed. This is crazy. I closed two properties in the same day. So that one I need $7,600 to close. The other property that I took over, I borrowed instead of doing the subject to, which I was about to do. I changed my mind. I borrowed $100,000 from a private lender. You ready for this? I borrowed $100,000 from a private lender because the property is worth like $130,000. I borrowed $100,000 from a private lender. I pay $60,000 for the property, so I have I have extra money of almost $40,000 from this deal. And I had the title company just move the $7,000 from the $40,000 into this deal. So I literally walked into a title company with zero money, walked out with a check for $28,500 and 2 properties. How many of you guys doing that? If you're not, come to Investor School and I'll teach you how to do it.
Not me.
I do this shit all the time. This is great. What's up, Ben? What questions do you have?
I was gonna ask, have you ever gotten somebody who's suspicious of the 2-page agreement and they think, oh, this is too little or something like that?
No. Have you?
No.
Okay.
I know I have had that where they're like, well, we need a real contract. It is a real contract.
Right.
It says I'm buying it for this and that's it. Period.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just looking to go, well, what do you want in the contract? I don't know. Well, does it say everything you need? It says the name of the property. It says your name. It says my name. It says the price I'm gonna pay, and it says the date I'm gonna close. What else do you want?
They says, well, I need some protection.
What kind of protection? What do you want?
That's what I want to know. I always ask that question.
So here's the cool part, right? So when you
If you want it, I'll put it in.
you can put anything you want. You can put anything you want. You can put anything you want in the contract. I do. I mean, I've said. I think there was one where the guy was getting divorced. It was a different divorce situation. The guy's getting divorced. And he goes, my wife just wants to make. My ex-wife just wants to make sure that she doesn't know any taxes. Can you put that in the agreement of sale? I said, sure. Your wife doesn't know any taxes. I mean, it was a crazy. I was like, really? I looked at the guy. I go, that's between you and her. He goes, yeah, I know, but she wants to be comfortable. I goes, okay, your wife won't know any taxes. Whatever. So I wrote that as an addendum to the contract. All right. Anybody else have a question?
So no attorneys involved in these sales.
So you can have an attorney if you want. I just
Good.
so
One other one, Larry.
I'm really tired of paying attorneys to teach them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To just take money and screw up the deal.
Yeah, attorneys. It's like
He's just shaking his head.
I'm like, I get on the phone. Well, would you, if you'd like, I could teach you this. You come to our school, I'll teach you how to do this. And it's funny because I go like, how many properties have you bought? Well, I bought the house I live in. Well, I have hundreds of properties. How would you like me to teach you how to buy properties? Well, what you're doing is fraud. No, it's not. But anyway, just the arguments I have with people.
Yeah.
I've actually, you ready for this? I've actually gone to trust attorneys, estate planning attorneys, and taught them how to buy properties in trust. They go, why do you do that? I'm like, oh my God. And you do this? And I'm going to give them an education, but that's a different story. But
Larry, we'll get one other question. What about fixing up the houses? Do you get involved in that, or do you stay away from houses like that? Because I was looking at some stuff in my area, and I pretty much have stuff with the 1% rule, but then with other fees, and then with fixing things up, it really messes things up for me because I'm not a handy guy. I'd hate to have to go searching for contractors and stuff. I feel like I'd be losing out on that.
all right. So
Stay away from that.
So the question is, do I buy subject to properties that need repairs, correct?
I guess that's a simple way of doing it. Yeah.
Almost always, because they almost always need repairs.
Right.
But the numbers are totally different now. The 1% rule has nothing to do with anything anymore. The 1% rule is gone when you're buying subject to properties. I don't care what the property's worth. I mean, the property could be worth $200,000 and I can rent it for $1,000, but my payment's $800. I make $200, so I don't care about it anymore. As far as repairs go, look, it's just really up to you. I mean, I buy properties. Sometimes I buy properties for $100,000. I take them over subject to. I got to put $25,000 into them, and I'll rent them for $1,300-1,400. My payment for the subject to is maybe $800. I mean, I'm making these numbers up, but maybe it's $800, and then my payment for my credit card is $300. So I'm still ahead, right? So I don't really care. By the way, I have lots of cash. I want you to understand, I have lots of cash, but I buy everything. Everything I buy ever is with other people's money.
Mhm. Yep.
Everything always is with other people's money. It's a
Even a jacket?
What?
Even a jacket?
I still hear it.
Even your jacket?
Can what?
Even your jacket. Even
Yeah.
your jacket?
No, yeah, there's no doubt. I bought this with, I think I bought this with Citibank's money, right?
Yep.
You need to understand that everything I buy I buy with other people's money. Now, what you guys don't understand that other people's money does include credit cards, does include banks, does include other things. When you start coming here, you get it. You start to understand really quickly what the difference is. So the other question is, what guarantee do I put in the contract that I will make the mortgage payments? None. It's my word. And I'm telling you right now, Chris, if you do not make that mortgage payment, don't do a subject to. And when I look at somebody who's wearing a face and say, I'm going to make your mortgage payment, they believe me. That's it. Now, there are a couple of things you can do to reassure them, help them maybe. You listen, you have a login for your bank. If you want to, you can look at the every first of the month and see that I made the payment. And then if you don't see that I made the payment, you can call me and we'll talk about it. But that's all they can do. They really can't do anything. But I've never missed a payment. I never missed a payment to my private lenders. I never missed a payment to my subject to properties. I don't think I've ever missed a payment of anything, but since 2008, that's fine. All right. Any other questions?
Hey, Larry, question about making the payments. Do you use a loan processor for that just so it's all automated and you don't have to worry about it?
Do I use it?
The loan processor to make the payments.
Well, I use my Wells Fargo bill pay, and I schedule a payment for everybody every month. So anybody who borrows money from me or anyone who make payments, I schedule a payment, and it goes out on the 28th of every month, and they get it by the 1st or 2nd of every month. Is that what you meant?
Yep.
Okay.
Simply put, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know at this point. Like somebody will call me up because in Wells Fargo in December, for whatever reason, one of the post offices were closed for COVID, and a couple of people didn't get their payments, and I was shocked. I actually, it was private lenders, like 3 private lenders called me up. I get your payment. I'm like, get out of here. I mailed that payment goes out automatically. I had to find the account. I had to find the payment. I showed them the payment was made. Spoke to Wells Fargo. They assured me the payment was going to get there. Everyone was cool with it. That was the first time that ever happened to me in, I don't know, 10 years that actually happened to me, but it is what it is. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, good question. When you have the trusts that you're setting up for each of these properties, are you opening up individual bank accounts like you would in LLCs in order to make these payments, or you have your one main account?
I'm going to tell you that's a fantastic question. And the answer for me is yes. I open up a trust account for every single property, but you don't have to.
Okay.
So it's kind of weird. The weird part is you could actually use your LLC as the trustee and all the money can go through your LLC. But I like the idea of having an individual bank account for every property. And I do it for my own reasons. One is I do it because I like the idea. It's easy to do accounting. I don't have to use QuickBooks. I mean, I do, but I don't have to use QuickBooks. I could just look at that property real quick, and I could see what's going in and out of that property without having to show anything else. The other thing I like is also if somebody comes to me a year later and they say, hey, I'm getting a mortgage. I need proof that you're making a payment. I could give them 12 months of statements from just that property. They can't see anything else in there but that property. So I like that too. So these are reasons. And the third one, probably the most important one, is when you sell the property, the title company is going to give you a check in the trust name. So if you have 123 Main Street Trust, the check is going to come to 123 Main Street Trust. So you have to eventually open the account anyway. I just open it in the beginning. All right, I don't know how much time we got, but we probably got time for what, 2 more questions? How's that, Scott?
All right, I have a question. This is Chris Spilardo. I have an opportunity to buy a property for $285,000. It's a duplex.
Okay.
The current rent roll is $3,000. The guy has a mortgage for $200,000. He doesn't want to do the subject to buy. So is there any way, or have you ever done a deal where you get him to finance the down payment?
Wait, I'm confused. So did you talk to him about subject to already?
No, I'm assuming he's not going to be interested in it.
Oh, you're assuming.
Oh.
Man. Hey, Chris. You want to be a real estate investor?
Yes, I was asking you a hypothetical question.
Oh, okay. Hypothetically, I can't answer the question because hypothetically, a meteorite is about to hit my building and it's going to hit me in the head. I hate hypothetical questions because they absolutely make no sense. So if this is a real deal.
No, it's a real deal, but I didn't ask him the subject to. I'm just saying if I do ask him, what's my plan B if he's not interested in the subject to?
Plan B, I have plan B through Z, plan BA, and through ZA. So do you want all those plans?
Yes.
Okay, go to investorschooling.com, sign up for this Thursday night's class, and become a student, and we will start giving you all those plans. In about a year, you'll probably know about a third of the ones that I know. Is that okay?
No, but if that's your answer,
Well, I do have one other way that we can do it. All right. So touch your screen. Put your hands on the screen. Are they on the screen?
yeah.
All right. I'm going to do the Vulcan mind meld right now with you. I can't teach you all those answers in 5 minutes. I just can't. But there's all kinds of ways. I go 13 different ways that you could buy that property before I even go see the guy. But the best thing you need to do is go see the guy. All right. One more question. Anybody out there?
You answered all my
Hey,
questions.
Larry, I have a really boring tax question if you'll entertain it.
Maybe.
So with tax season upon us, how do you handle in terms of income and, the cash flows that you get from the property? Do you have all of that under your LLC and you file your taxes that way?
Sometimes. Yeah. For the most part, I do. Are you an accountant?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Yeah. So the question, and let me see if I can rephrase the question. The question is, does my LLC do all, is the tax return for the LLC for all the properties in the trust? And the answer is yes, because the beneficiary of all my trust happens to be my LLC. That's why my LLC owns nothing. My LLC actually owns debt. It's the greatest thing ever. It owns debt and it owns a car. So I have 4 LLCs that own cars. So each one of my LLCs, each one of these 4 LLCs own cars. I have about 12 LLCs now. Some of them own stuff, some of them don't. Some of them, it's fun, but most of them have debt. It's great. I'm going to teach you guys. By the way, I now have $700,000 worth of available credit on just credit cards, and some of those are in my LLCs. And if you guys want to learn how to do that too, that's something else that we teach.
Oh, I could
That's
borrow
awesome.
one.
What's that?
Supposed to use other people's money, so I get to borrow one, right?
You could, yeah, sure. Whatever.
Thanks for that, Larry. And sorry, quick follow-up. Did you say the LLC was the beneficiary or the trustee?
The LLC in this case happens to be the beneficiary. You could make another LLC the trustee if you want, or that LLC the trustee. But I like to make myself as a trustee because I like being human, and I have no liability. Because I'm certainly my LLC is certainly not going to sue me.
Are you sure?
I don't know. Will you? I'll try.
That's split
Just had to
personality, yeah.
ask. Yes, that's split personality. I knew it would be there.
Thank you, Larry. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys have any questions, you can reach out. By the way, if you want to, if you go to sub2letter.com, you get the sub2 letter. You also get links to the school, blah, blah, blah. But if you want to reach me, talk to me, you can go to contactlarry.com. Contactlarry.com. And then you can even schedule a call with me. I'd be more than happy to talk to you if you guys have like something you want to talk about. Like, I don't know, who was it a minute ago? I lost him. Who
Chris.
wants to know the hypothetical stuff?
Yeah, that was Chris.
So Chris, if you want to talk to me about hypothetical stuff for half an hour, be more than happy to talk to you about hypothetical stuff for half an hour. But after about 5 minutes, I'm going to yell at you for talking about hypothetical stuff.
So
Yeah, because Chris is a good guy, so
Yeah.
take care of him.
I was going to ask you about investorschooling.com. You have a class tomorrow, correct?
Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday. Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody invited? Is this a free class? Can everybody come? Do you have a Zoom? Like, how is it working for tomorrow?
So everyone is invited. Anybody want to come? Who wants to come? Who wants to come for free?
Everybody does, right?
Okay. You could come for free under one condition.
I can't.
You go and RSVP.
Okay, there you go. At investorschooling.com.
Yeah, investorschooling.com, go RSVP right at the top. Click the RSVP button. You'll have 2 choices. You can come in person or via Zoom. I'm going to encourage you to come in person if you can, if you even think you can. It's more fun. I mean, you can see I'm having a really good time. So Deborah says, so you've been there before. Can you still come? Everyone but you, Deborah, can come.
Wear a mask and a hood. He won't even recognize you.
Yeah, right. So I mean, masks are optional. You're certainly welcome to wear one. And we promise we won't make fun of you for too long.
Yeah, and I've been to his schooling. It's changed since we've been there, but it's a great place. It's a good facility. He has good space there and good technology. So it is beneficial if you're there. But if you can't make it, it's always good to be online because Larry has great information like he did tonight.
Hey, we have this really cool TV too. Isn't it cool?
Yeah, it's better than what was there when we were there.
Yeah, well, it was pretty cool when you were here too, but we've enhanced. We got, I mean, this is our Zoom presentation. You could see what we do with this is totally different too. I had an operator working here a couple of minutes ago who was operating the Zoom stuff. We have a pretty intense technology. All right, so if anybody wants to come, you are welcome to come. Just go to investorschooling.com, RSVP there, show up in person, show up via Zoom. Yes, Deborah, you could come too under one condition. You better be nice to me. So I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys all for being here, of course. I want to
Thank you.
thank Scott and Tabitha because they're like awesome people.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Larry.
Loves.
There's nobody, I got to tell you, there's nobody more exciting than Tabitha.
Thanks, Larry.
Right? Thank you. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you being here. And Tabitha, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys, and I'll hang out here while you say your goodbyes.
All right, everyone, we want to thank you all for coming. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you got a lot out of it.
Yeah, everybody give Larry a big round of applause.
You can
Thank you, Larry.
unmute, y'all can unmute, and
Yep.
we can open the floor up and just say woohoo.
Yes, again, last Wednesday of every month, we're still here, 7 o'clock, the meetings. We're on Zoom until it gets warmer or things open up. March will be a networking event. It'll be virtual. And we'll have the breakout rooms again, so people can disperse in the main area and go talk a little more privately.
Well, not
And-
even just privately. It's just,
Well,
it's kind of like, at
less
least
people.
you get to, like when you're at a networking event, you get to jump from room to room, and it's really cool. You
Yeah.
know, you get to pop in, pop out, pop in, pop out, and check
Different
everybody's little,
conversations. you know.
yeah.
And,
So-
continue building your relationships and working on your business and look for people to learn from and make sure that the people you're listening to are the right people.
Yep.
People out there are still listening to the wrong people and getting wrong information and making incorrect decisions based on the information they're getting. We're available if you want to reach out. We can help with questions, concerns, help, assistance. We JV. There's always Larry. You have his contact information if you want to sign up for somebody for education and knowledge.
Coaching
would
from all
prefer-
of us.
Yeah, we coach. If you didn't want to go with us, I would prefer you go with somebody like Larry over some of the big gurus you see on TV and on Facebook and all of that, because
Mhm.
a lot of them don't give you the information you need, where Larry and will provide you with that necessary information you need. That's why we have these events every month. So you get more information, like the information you got tonight is very useful out there. There's going to be a lot of people that you can help. You'll make money, but you can also help a lot of people.
Yep.
So.
So everybody unmute and say, thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Larry.
Larry.
Thanks,
you.
Larry. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Tabitha.
Oh,
Awesome.
you're all very welcome.
Oh, and if anybody, I know some people are also asking, we will have the recording. If you go to our CNJ REIG, Central New Jersey Real Estate Investment Group Facebook page.
Yep.
It's gonna be in there. You'll have to probably scroll down to find it. And we'll also upload it to our company YouTube channel, Diamond and Rough Properties. That's where we post most of the recordings for the meetings as well.
Yeah, a lot of people
So-
are YouTubers.
Yeah, so two areas you'll be able to get the recording. This way, it's, if you miss something, and I like to have them so I can refer back to information, because it's hard to take notes and remember all the information that you get all the time.
You can take notes and then retake notes.
So again, thank everybody for coming.
Maybe we'll see y'all tomorrow.
All right. Thank you all, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys tomorrow.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot,
thank you.
Scott. Tabitha, I really
all.
Time for ice cream.
Good seeing you, Scott and Tabitha. See you
Thank
guys
you.
later.
Thanks for coming, Ben. Good seeing you.
Hopefully we'll see you soon.